former Walmart store manager just spoke out with a warning, revealing a series of familiar items sitting on shelves right now that very few families suspect carry hidden risks before tossing them into their cart every week. You'd be awesome if you subscribed and liked this video. 1. Everstart Value Batteries. At $69.74, the Everstart Value Battery Set sounds like a steal compared to name brand options with the same capacity. In reality, though, you'll end up replacing them much sooner than expected. This line relies on older chemical technology, resulting in a noticeably shorter lifespan than higher-tier branded batteries of equivalent capacity. When it comes to standard alkaline batteries, actual real-world capacity often falls several dozen percentage points short of the labeled rating when used in high-drain devices like flashlights or camera flashes. A single name brand AA battery powering a high-drain device usually lasts dozens of minutes longer than a budget battery of the same size. Added up over the course of a year, the frequency with which you have to reach into your wallet for new packs goes way up. This gap is most obvious in devices running continuously, as the discharge curve for older battery chemistry drops off far faster than the numbers printed on the package suggest. That means even if you pay less per battery up front, your annual replacement rate rises, making the actual cost per hour of use anything but cheap. For devices used continuously or critically, such as emergency flashlights, blood glucose monitors, or hearing aids, a sudden drop in battery power halfway through is more than just an inconvenience. It's a serious hazard. You don't want a blood pressure monitor throwing an error right when you urgently need a reading, all because a cheap battery drained without warning. On handheld medical devices, a sudden voltage drop can also cause sensors to display inaccurate numbers before the device powers down completely, leading users to mistake them for genuine readings. Insiders usually trust only long-proven, name-brand batteries with verified stability for health-critical equipment, while leaving the Everstart line for TV remotes or kids' toys, items where a sudden dead battery won't cause any real harm. 2. Great value family-sized chicken broth. A carton with an intact seal and an expiration date printed clearly a year out doesn't guarantee the contents are completely safe. Great Value's large-format chicken broth cartons previously shook that confidence when they were hit with a recall, not due to an issue with the recipe itself, but because of a packaging flaw. A manufacturing defect in the cap's seal left microscopic gaps just large enough for bacteria to enter, while the carton sat completely undisturbed on the shelf. The trouble is, the exterior of the carton looks perfectly smooth and normal, with plenty of shelf life remaining and no warning signs whatsoever. Bacteria grow silently inside, and consumers only realize something is wrong after suffering stomach pain or food poisoning from a family soup dinner. With sealed broth cartons, the greatest risk isn't typical bacteria, but the anaerobic environment inside where botulinum toxin-producing bacteria can thrive without oxygen. This toxin isn't destroyed by standard kitchen boiling temperatures. Food testing facilities typically must boil it at temperatures above 185 degrees for at least 5 continuous minutes to completely neutralize it. When a recall of this kind is announced, the affected batches are generally pulled from store shelves in less than 24 hours, with cross-referencing based on the lot code printed on the bottom of the carton, not the expiration date. Never assume safety just because the packaging appears intact, as this defect is strictly internal and invisible to the naked eye. If the bottom or lid of the carton bulges even slightly, it indicates gas buildup inside, and your best move is to discard it immediately without opening it to smell. The fastest way to check whether a carton you own is included in a recall is to match the lot code on the bottom against the manufacturer's official notice, rather than just relying on how much time is left before the expiration date. 3. Great value American pasteurized prepared cheese product. On busy mornings before work, you probably slap a slice of this yellow-orange cheese into a sandwich for your family, likely never imagining that this familiar slice isn't legally recognized as real cheese under U.S. food regulations. Great Value states it quite clearly on the packaging with the phrase cheese product, a clever term for an item whose main ingredients are water, vegetable oil, and food coloring, rather than traditionally fermented milk. Under Food and Drug Administration (FDA) regulations, a product can only be labeled as cheese if the amount of real milk or casein meets a specific minimum threshold. This product line falls below that standard, forcing it to be labeled as a cheese product right on the package, a piece of fine print that very few people notice when grabbing it in a hurry from the refrigerated aisle. If you pay close attention, you'll notice that when melted, this slice doesn't melt smoothly like real cheese. Instead, it shrinks into a rubbery, sponge-like mass. The flavor is also supplemented with artificial flavorings to compensate for the minimal milk content inside. Compared to a slice of real cheddar cheese of the same size, the protein content in a slice of cheese product is usually significantly lower, while the sodium content is slightly higher to make up for the flavor. For families with young children eating sandwiches every day, this is an item that seems budget-friendly, but actually introduces more sodium and unnecessary additives into their bodies each week, while delivering far less real calcium and milk protein compared to traditional cheese of the same weight. In my view, if you really love sliced cheese for burgers or sandwiches, look for packages explicitly labeled cheese rather than cheese product. The price difference is only a few dozen cents per pack, but in exchange, you get real milk instead of water and fat dyed bright yellow-orange. I once tested both side by side, and the difference when melted was so stark that you wouldn't need an expert to spot it instantly. 4. Market-side broccoli florets. Do you think that simply keeping vegetables in the refrigerator keeps bacteria completely at bay? A bag of pre-cut market-side broccoli florets is a wake-up call to that belief, having previously been hit with a recall due to listeria contamination, one of the most dangerous foodborne bacteria you can encounter in a supermarket. Unlike typical food poisoning that only causes a few days of stomach upset, listeria can directly attack your nervous system. What makes this bacterium far scarier than others is its ability to thrive even in the cold environment of freezers and refrigerators where most other pathogenic bacteria virtually stop multiplying. Even at around 34 degrees Celsius, the standard cooling temperature of most home refrigerators, listeria can continue to double in number, albeit at a slower pace than at room temperature. Pre-cut broccoli is kept chilled all the way from the processing plant to the supermarket shelf and into your home fridge, meaning listeria has an extended window of time to multiply without being suppressed. For older adults, pregnant women, and individuals with weakened immune systems, a listeria infection can lead to high fevers, meningitis, and even miscarriages in pregnant women. What is even more alarming is that pre-cut broccoli is often eaten raw in salads or lightly tossed without thorough cooking, so the bacteria are never destroyed by heat. Even if you rinse it with tap water, listeria can remain deeply embedded in the tiny crevices of the stems and florets that regular washing cannot fully remove. During listeria-related recalls, entire affected produce sections are typically cleared within a few hours of the official announcement, as this bacterium doesn't wait for the expiration date to cause harm. If your household frequently buys pre-cut vegetables to save time in the evening, make it a habit to check food recall notices periodically, especially for items meant to be eaten raw. Personally, when it comes to budget pre-cut fresh produce, I always wash it thoroughly or cook it through rather than eating it straight out of the bag. 5. Walmart's Budget Kitchen Line Can Openers. A budget line can opener costing just a few dollars looks no different from brand name tools, but the materials inside are a completely different story. The cutting blade is made of thin metal with minimal heat treatment, so it starts dulling and warping noticeably after just a few dozen uses. A high-quality can opener uses hardened stainless steel that maintains consistent sharpness through hundreds of uses without wearing down along the edges. Budget models usually only apply a thin metallic plating over a soft steel core, causing this outer coating to flake off quickly with continuous contact against the sharp edges of metal lids. This type of thin, plated blade typically shows visible degradation after only a few dozen uses, much sooner than the average lifespan of a solid stainless steel can opener. A more serious issue occurs when the blade wears unevenly, as it easily leaves tiny metal splinters right on the rim of the can or drops them directly into the food inside. You can hardly spot these fragments with the naked eye, and they only become apparent when you bite into them while eating a meal. For seniors or young children, swallowing a small metal shard can cause throat or digestive tract injuries, with no one ever suspecting the culprit was the can opener in the kitchen drawer. The secret is to choose a can opener with sturdy rubber handles and a thick stainless steel blade. Spending a few extra dollars is well worth the money in the long run. Kitchen tools are items you handle every day, so you shouldn't trade off safety just to save a few pennies. The deeper I go into this list, the more I realize there are items completely unrelated to food that are just as dangerous. The next item is right in your living room, beneath your feet every single day. 6 great value pepperoni pizza snack rolls. Less than 10% of the weight of each pepperoni pizza snack roll is actual pepperoni, even though the box sits right in the freezer aisle and is advertised as a convenient quick bite for the whole family. Most of the remaining volume consists of wheat flour, modified starch, and textural fillers, making the rolls puff up while the meat flavor remains bland and artificial. The sodium content in each roll is also abnormally high given its small size, partly because manufacturers must compensate for the flavor using salt and synthetic seasonings. A small serving of just a few rolls can account for nearly 1/3 of the recommended daily sodium intake for an adult, a figure very few parents notice when serving them to their kids for an afternoon snack. Not to mention, home microwaves often heat unevenly, leaving the center of the roll cold while the outer crust is already scorched. This inconsistent temperature also prevents the filling inside from reaching the heat necessary to destroy bacteria that may linger in processed meats, a small but real risk with budget frozen foods. Because they are cheap and reheat in a few minutes, this line of snack rolls often ends up in the carts of busy families needing a quick snack for their children. But for kids eating them regularly, the cumulative sodium intake each week is by no means small. Instead, flip the box over and read the nutrition panel rather than trusting the bright red pepperoni image printed on the packaging. Choosing a brand that explicitly lists real meat content above 20% is far more worth your money than this item. 7. Equate blood pressure monitor. An affordable price and a familiar Walmart store brand make Equate blood pressure monitors a common sight in many households with elderly family members. But this is actually one of the items I worry about most, because it directly impacts your cardiovascular health or that of your loved ones. This budget line of monitors often lacks the routine calibration processes found in specialized medical equipment, leading to readings that skew by several points compared to actual numbers. Medical-grade blood pressure monitors require periodic cross-checking against mercury devices, whereas budget lines typically undergo only a single quality inspection before leaving the factory and are never re-verified throughout their operational lifespan. For an average healthy person, a minor margin of error might not be a major concern, but for someone undergoing hypertension treatment who needs close monitoring to adjust their medication dosage, a reading that is off by even 10 points can lead a doctor to make an incorrect treatment decision, increasing or decreasing the dosage in a way that doesn't match your body's true condition. This lack of periodic calibration is precisely why home readings often differ dramatically from clinic readings taken at the exact same time of day. There's a quick tip that few people notice. Bring your monitor to the clinic every few months for a cross-check rather than trusting the display at home blindly. If someone in your family needs daily blood pressure monitoring, opt for a device clearly cleared by medical authorities. Health is not the place to save a few dozen dollars. 8. iFanzi Area Rugs. $29.99 is the price tag on an iFanzi area rug. Attractive designs and a wide variety of color options make it a top seller in the home decor section. But behind that eye-catching appearance lies a hazard that very few buyers pay attention to. The fiber material of this rug fails to meet standard flame spread resistance requirements for home furnishings, meaning it catches fire faster and spreads flames more broadly than safety-compliant rugs. Standard interior rugs typically must pass laboratory flame spread testing before hitting the market, whereas cheap imported decorative rugs sometimes slip through inspection loopholes because they are categorized under decor items rather than home building materials that require strict compliance. For households placing rugs near fireplaces, scented candles, or power outlets, this presents a silent fire hazard right under your feet every single day that no one warns you about. Furthermore, cheap synthetic fibers tend to melt, drip, and emit thicker smoke when ignited compared to natural fibers, making it far harder to extinguish if an incident occurs at night. Cheap imported home decor is often the category scrutinized most heavily during fire safety audits, specifically because of this classification loophole. If you plan to replace your rug with a safer option, wait a few weeks for Labor Day. Furniture and home appliance discounts at Walmart are typically at their deepest of the year then, giving you a safer product while saving money. Just remember to check the label explicitly stating it meets flame retardant standards before heading to the register, rather than just focusing on the price tag and pretty patterns. If you think this list is only made up of food and household goods, hold on. The next item touches something you use every single morning right in your own bathroom. 9. Equate dandruff shampoo. Sitting right on the hair care shelf, a bottle of Equate dandruff shampoo promises to solve dandruff fast at half the price of major brand name alternatives. The issue is that its formula uses harsher detergents than necessary to give users an instant squeaky clean feeling. Harsh detergents in budget shampoos are often high-concentration sulfates, agents that produce abundant lather but also strip away the scalp's natural oils, which are responsible for retaining moisture and protecting the skin against inflammation-causing bacteria. After a few washes, your scalp loses this protective oil barrier, leaving it tight, dry, and flaking even more than before you started using the product. Ironically, this dry scalp condition is frequently mistaken for recurring dandruff, prompting many people to use even more shampoo to treat it. This creates a vicious cycle that progressively irritates the scalp over time. For individuals with inherently sensitive scalps or older adults whose sebaceous glands are less active, this cycle speeds up significantly. Prolonged, dry, irritated scalp conditions are also a silent underlying cause of increased hair shedding. Here's what I usually do. Read the ingredient list carefully and avoid harsh sulfate detergents, opting instead for lines explicitly labeled as gentle for dry scalp. Saving a few dollars isn't worth enduring itchiness and hair loss for months on end. 10. Sunglasses. Under the glaring summer sun, you walk past the accessories rack and pick up a 3 pair of sunglasses, convinced that the darker the lens, the better your eyes are protected. This exact line of thinking leads countless people to unknowingly harm their eyes every day. The darker the lens, the wider your pupils dilate to see through that artificial shade. If the lenses do not actually block UVA and UVB rays, your eyes absorb even more ultraviolet radiation than if you wore no sunglasses at all. Over time, this contributes to cataracts and retinal damage, 2 issues optometrists and ophthalmologists frequently encounter in older adults. Young children are even more vulnerable because their eye lenses are clearer than those of adults, allowing UV rays to penetrate much more easily. A standard compliant pair of sunglasses usually clearly states 100% UVA and UVB protection or meets ANSI ZE.3 standards right on the sticker applied to the lens. Budget lines costing a few dollars rarely carry these claims, or if printed, they come without any specific testing metrics to back them up. If you frequently drive long distances under intense sunlight for hours, the UV rays reflecting off the pavement and windshield further compound the daily exposure your eyes absorb. During midday in many southern U.S. states, the UV index often exceeds 8, a level at which dermatologists and eye care professionals advise enhanced eye protection. In the summer, especially around the 4th of July holiday when families rush out to buy beach gear, these budget sunglasses sell in much higher volumes than usual, causing a parallel spike in the number of people inadvertently choosing non-compliant pairs. If it were me, I wouldn't touch these $3 sunglasses for daily outdoor wear. Spending a few extra dollars on a pair with clearly stated UV protection ratings gives your eyes real protection rather than a false sense of security. 11. Great Value Almond Crunchy Honey Oat Cereal. A box of Great Value Almond Crunchy Honey Oat Cereal features images of golden almond slices generously covering the packaging, leading you to believe it's a healthy breakfast option rich in plant-based protein. In reality, what's inside the box tells a completely different story from what you'd expect. The actual amount of real almonds in each serving accounts for only a tiny fraction. The vast majority of the box consists of heavily processed oats coated in a fairly thick layer of sugar to create that appealing sweet crunch. The more processing steps oats undergo, such as thin rolling and pre-cooking before packaging, the higher their glycemic index rises. This causes your body to absorb sugar much faster than it would from whole grain or rolled oats. For anyone monitoring their blood sugar or living with diabetes, a serving of this seemingly healthy cereal can cause a rapid spike in blood sugar, no different from eating a sweet cookie. The added sugars per serving, combined with the natural sugars released from the heavily processed oats, can account for nearly a quarter of your recommended daily sugar intake. That's a number few people would ever suspect just by looking at the words almond and honey on the front of the box. Smart shoppers often flip the box over to check the ingredient list before believing the large almond or honey claims printed on the package. If you or a family member need to manage blood sugar, choosing a cereal with less added sugar and plenty of real dietary fiber will do far more for your long-term health than a few minutes of sweet flavor in the morning. 12. Market-side linguine with beef meatballs and marinara sauce. Quick weeknight dinners for busy families often feature Market-Side's ready-to-eat pasta box with beef meatballs and marinara sauce. However, the pasta component in this product, produced by a third-party supplier, was found to be contaminated with listeria during a recent quality inspection. This is the exact same extremely dangerous bacterium I mentioned earlier with the broccoli, but with this packaged pasta dish, the risk level is even higher because the product is typically just microwaved briefly rather than thoroughly boiled like traditional pasta. A quick reheating temperature isn't enough to completely destroy bacteria hidden inside the pasta, especially at the core of thick meatballs and dense noodles, where heat fails to penetrate fast enough during a short multi-minute reheat. Listeria differs from most common food poisoning bacteria in that its incubation period can range from several days to several weeks after consumption, making it difficult for patients to connect their symptoms to a meal eaten long ago. For older adults, pregnant women, and young children, the consequences of a listeria infection can be far more severe than typical food poisoning, potentially leading to extended hospital stays. I wouldn't take any chances with this dish if someone in your household falls into any of those high-risk groups. If you've purchased this product, check the lot code against recall notices immediately. If you have any doubts, it's best to throw it out rather than risk it over a few dollars spent. Before tossing any item into your shopping cart, take a few seconds to double-check the lot code sticker and the ingredient label. If you're looking to buy new home goods or area rugs, wait patiently for the next major clearance event so you can get the best price with total peace of mind regarding quality.